Okay, so this story is an incredible story that was shared by Rabbi Ari Smith, who went to a place in Tel Aviv called London Ministers. Apparently, it's a fashion district in Tel Aviv, and he spoke to Yafa Ariel and her husband Yaakov and her brother-in-law Yitzchak Hakim to hear the story firsthand. It's an incredible story, and a story that really opens our hearts and minds to the blessings of Hashem. So let's go right to it. So Yitzchak Hakim shared that he had his first son in 1979, and then he wanted to have another child, but he and his wife were not blessed with a child. They were trying for 7 years to have a child. They went to various doctors, and finally, in 1986, they had their second son, whose name is Michal. When Michal turned 2.5 years old in 1988, he started complaining about pain in his head, pain in his stomach. We took him to a doctor. The doctor basically said that it's a normal thing, he's a child, kids have pain, it goes away, don't worry about it. But the pain wasn't going away, although they followed the doctor's instructions carefully. And they brought their son back to another doctor, a more senior doctor, because they noticed their son was losing weight, he was sweating a lot, he was having a fever. And the doctor did a round of battery of tests, and he told him to stay in his office until some of the tests came back. And he says he's worried for that maybe Michael, God forbid, has leukemia, shalom. Unfortunately, they did more tests, and they discovered that not only does he have this disease, shalom, but in this disease itself, he has it in a very intense way, a very severe way, and his life is in danger. So the parents, Yitzchak Hakim and his wife, took him to the best doctors, the best treatment. They brought him to a Wolfson Hospital in Cholon. They brought him to Hadassah Hospital in Ein Kerem. And the best treatment that was available then in the late 80s for this disease. And they took, despite all these treatments, unfortunately he wasn't getting better. And this went on for 1.5 years until Michael turned 4 years old. And the kind of treatments they gave him weren't the kind of treatments that were customarily given to a child of that age. The parents were so dedicated to keeping their child alive that they asked the doctors to give their child treatments that are not ordinarily given to that child so young, because they could have adverse effects also, very painful treatments. And but this boy, 4 years old, was going through all this intense, painful treatments. This was going on for 1.5 years. There is a place in Orlando, no one should know about it, but it's a place called Give Kids the World. It's like a little village that a very generous philanthropist built in order to give children who are going through really harsh conditions to enjoy life a little bit. There are 2 conditions to be part of this, to be able to visit this place. One condition is that the only child who has a severe terminal illness is allowed to visit, and you only can come with a brother and a sister and your parents. And you only get to stay for a week, and not more, not less, and not an hour more. It's a very unique place. It's a wonderful place for a child to visit, to see this anything a child could want is in this magical kind of little village. And so they heard about this, and they wanted their child to experience this. But the problem was their child was so ill that the doctors didn't want their child to leave the hospital to go to this little village because of his intense condition. but they had in the director of the division where their son was being treated. His name is Ami Balin. He's today also a doctor there, and he said that he will travel himself with their child because they didn't want to release the child out of doctor. And I will go with your child to this place so that your child will have a doctor on call with him. And he went there for a week to be there with him as in this place. Yitzchak Hakim, Michal's father, has a sister and a brother-in-law who live in New York. His brother-in-law, his sister's name is Yafa Ariel, and his brother-in-law's name is Yaakov Ariel. And they live in New York, and his brother-in-law is a very talented musician who performs often with the piamentas. He's a talented, plays the flute, the trumpet, and so they wanted to arrange, since they're already in America, that their flight back from America should go through New York. So they went to New York, and they stayed there for a couple of days in New York. And since Yaakov had learned a lot about the Rebbe from performing with the Piamenta brothers, who were Chabad Chassidim, he called Avi, and he asked Avi what he thinks about getting a private audience for Michal and his parents with the Rebbe. This was in Tafshin Nun in 1990, when it wasn't any more. The Rebbe had long stopped giving private audiences. The Rebbe was still giving out dollars on Sunday at that time, but there was there's no possibility for a private audience. But Avi, he came to the house where they were staying, to Yaakov Ariel's house, and Avi sat down with him, and he told him what a Rebbe is, and how a Rebbe speaks to Hashem, and a Rebbe is able to ask God for things in a way that's very unique, like asking Moshe Rabbeinu, asking Moses himself to pray for you. That's what it means to go and ask the Rebbe to daven for you. So he insisted that they use the occasion of their being in New York to take the opportunity and to try to see the Rebbe somehow. They couldn't have a private audience, but Avi said, I'll do what I can to give you something, some moment with the Rebbe somehow. So he called Rabbi Groner. He came back to him with the following. He says, the Rebbe doesn't do private audiences now, but on the way back, I spoke to Rabbi Groner, and Rabbi Groner said that when the Rebbe comes back from the morning prayers, before he enters his room, you can greet the Rebbe by the elevator in the second floor on 770, and there, by the elevator, you'd be by yourselves with the Rebbe, and you could have a moment with the Rebbe. All right? So they came to 770. The father and mother, Yitzchak Hakim and his wife, and Abi Piamenta, and the of course Michal, their son, and Yaakov Ariel and his wife Yafa. They all came to 770 for that morning prayer that day. The prayer that day we're talking about in the summertime in 1990, and it was right before the 9 days, and they were there for the prayer, for Shacharis, for the morning prayers, and then Rabbi Groner noticed them, and he knew what it was about, and he went with them to the outside the elevator. When the Rebbe came out, Rabbi Groner said, "This is Michal, and he has this disease." So Rebbe said very slowly and very carefully and very enunciating and emphasizing each word. Rebbe said, "V'suros tevis, you should have good news, and you should merit to raise your child to Torah, to marriage, and to good deeds. V'surot tovot, tizke legadloi, leTorah, lechup ma'asim tovim. You should merit to raise him for Torah, to his marriage, to his chuppah, and for good deeds." Now, they weren't Chabad Chassidim, and they'd been through a lot. I mean, besides the fighting to bring this child in the world for 7 years, trying to bring a child in the world, besides that, they'd been through a year of treatments, and it was really, really hard. The child's 4 years old, and seeing him going through all this, the anguish they're going through. So the Rebbe's words did restore faith in their hearts that their child will get better. Rebbe was talking about the child getting married, and here the doctors aren't really giving much hope to this child, and but they were very encouraged, and they were excited, and they came back to New York, to Israel. They came back to Israel, and immediately Michal had to go to the hospital, the Wolfson Hospital in Cholon, and he was given intense treatment, difficult treatment. He went through 2 treatments, and unfortunately, by the 3rd treatment, there was a tragic moment when he just was in a coma state. He was totally out, and the parents, of course, they were really hoping that coming back for the Rebbe, hearing these words and being in this special place in Orlando. For Give Kids the World, and they were very excited. And now to come back, and after going through these difficult treatments, 2 difficult treatments, now the 3rd one hopefully was going to help. Instead, it caused the opposite. The child now was unconscious and they were totally broken. Besides their hearts being broken, they were summoned to the director of the division where their son was being treated, and he told them, I don't know what can be done now about your son. I don't know anything else we could do for him. And he didn't want to look at them in the eyes. He looked down. He said, I don't know what else we could do. So their child is in this hospital, and every single day, the doctor said, it's a miracle your son's still alive. He shouldn't really be alive. He's there. He's unconscious. He's not talking. And he's unfortunately what the doctors were afraid of happened. The doctors were afraid that the intense treatments would have this adverse effect where he would lose consciousness and not function, and that's what happened. So that's why they were hesitant in the first place to give him these treatments, but they gave him the treatments, and unfortunately now he's in this state. So they were totally broken and totally upset, very upset with the Rebbe. They're upset because the Rebbe had given them such hope to raise them to Torah, to marriage, and to good deeds, and now the opposite has happened. So they wrote a very arrogant or chutzpahdik letter to the Rebbe, like a letter like saying basically like, don't talk to us anymore about hope and marriage and good deeds and Torah. Like, how dare you? How dare you give us this kind of hope when this is what's going on? Like, if you knew this was going to happen, how dare you say this to us? That was the kind of tone that they wrote to the Rebbe. They wrote the letter, I don't know the exact date, it was sometime in Elul. And the Rebbe responded by phone. The message to the secretary to tell them was, it's almost Sukkot. It's almost Sukkot. Why are they worried? It's almost Sukkot. So they had no idea what the Rebbe was saying. They just thought that's the way the Rebbe speaks. It was the middle of Elul. It was a month before Sukkot. They said, why are they worried? It's almost Sukkot. So they were, a little shocked by the Rebbe's response, but that's what the Rebbe responded. And they didn't know what to do with that. Like, what does that mean? But they realized that there's something going on over here. There's something the Rebbe sees. And they were convinced there's something the Rebbe sees. The child was unconscious for almost a month, and actually more than a month. And it was the day before Sukkot. The father, Yitzchak Hakim, is by his son's bed, and all of a sudden, his son wakes up, day before Sukkot, and he says, I want to eat. I want a sukkah. He's 4 years old. I want to eat. I want a sukkah. Now, the child wasn't awake. He had there's no way, logically, naturally, he could know it was day before Sukkot, because he was unconscious for such a long time. He was in a coma. And yet, he wakes up and he says, I want to eat. I want a sukkah. The whole hospital staff, everyone's shocked. The kid woke up. And, of course, the parents, and they realized, when the Rebbe said, why are you worried? It's almost Sukkot. It wasn't just a random thing. The bracha came down to this child on the day before Sukkot, almost Sukkot, and that night they took the child into a sukkah to eat in the sukkah, and he didn't respond well to the food. He threw up the wine that he was given, but he started to get better. And dramatic changes, Baruch Hashem, started to happen to his body. for the good, until he completely recovered 100% from this disease, to the astonishment of the entire medical staff. This boy, Michal, Baruch Hashem, he got married in the year 2001. And in the year 2020, he got married, Baruch Hashem. And today he has a senior position. He's a citizen, but he has a position in the Israeli army. He's an engineer, and his parents, Baruch Hashem, Yitzchak, Hakim, and his wife had a lot of nachas from him. So, just amazing words that Rebbe says. Why are you worried? It's almost Sukkot. Rebbe sees the bracha coming down, and Rebbe directs them to pay attention. The bracha is happening, and they're in a situation where there's no place to look at bracha. They just see pain and agony, and the Rebbe sees. And as we just started the new year, the year of Tavshin Pei Gimel, the year of Plois Delis, Plois HaGeula, the wonders of redemption, great wonders. May Hashem bless us all, that we shouldn't have to go chassidus through any agony at all. Instead, we should see Plois HaGeula, the wonders of redemption of Mashiach, as Rebbe said so clearly, so many times, that we are at the time of the Geula. No matter what's going on in each of our lives, we should keep our head above water and have absolute trust in Hashem, that we're going to see goodness and sweetness personally, and for all Abamis, for all the Jewish people, the coming of Mashiach, and we see this happen, take it from Mamash immediately, literally, tonight. A good vach. With March Simateva, Shanateva, Musuka.